Hello, ladies. I'm coming on for a little bit of an impromptu live stream. I hope some of you are able to jump on. If you do happen to see this come up on your live stream, if you are on the old Facebook right now. But I wanted to come on because it's been a bit of a hectic time. I was sick there for a little bit. And then it's been a holiday weekend this weekend, at least here in Canada, and I know for those of you in the States as well. So it's been a little hectic, and I haven't been able to do this week's live stream. So I really wanted to make sure that I was able to hop on today and chat with you. Because we do have a new habit to jump into this week, but I also wanted to address some issues that, are pretty much constantly popping up for anyone who's attempting to, become more healthy or develop new habits or, just has a goal in general that they're aiming for and trying to sort of navigate that as you navigate the rest of your crazy, chaotic life and kids and work and partners and whatever else might play a role in that, right? So it so often comes up that there is just not enough time. There's not enough time to get these things done, no matter, how many strategies we have. There just always seems like there's not enough time. And beyond sort of that comprehension that regardless, the thing is that we're eating and removing anyways, right? So it certainly becomes your choice on how to do that, right? So if you're going to be eating anyways, it's certainly your choice what you choose to put in and what you're looking for instead of, just leaving up to chance and having happen to you, okay? There's that to be sort of talked about. But there's something a little bit more that I wanted to go into when it comes to finding that time. I just realized I was playing with a flosser, which is hilarious. But playing or finding that time to really get the stuff in and do the stuff you need to do for your self-care, okay? So I wanted to run through a little bit of an exercise, and I will, after this live stream, pop a worksheet on here in case you sort of forgot what I've been talking about. But I think it's really important that you take the time and think about this, okay? So I want you to think about 3 people in your world, and you don't have to write down their names in case they ever happen to see this paper or something, but 3 people in your world who completely stress you out, like 100% stress you out for whatever reason. And it doesn't necessarily have to be completely bad things, right? Some people just, they get honest about things we know we have to do, for example, or something. But 3 people that stress you out. It could be, at work, your boss, a neighbor, or I don't know, whatever it is, a spouse, a child, a mother-in-law, whatever that is for you. I want you to think about that and write that down. Okay, take a minute and really do it. And now I want you to think about, for each one of those people, write down 3 attributes about them. So why is it that they stress you out, do they always need something from you? Are they always like crazy and chaotic? Are they always, they never have any money? Whatever it is, always having problems with love, like what is that and how do they come into your life and stress you out? So write down 3 attributes for each one of those people about why they stress you out. And I'll give you some time to do this as we go along, and I'll drink my latte. Okay, 3 for each one of those 3 people. And when you're done, I want you to have a look at them, and I want you to try and decide if there's sort of a common theme or a thread that runs through all of those attributes. And see if there's anything that comes up, because I guarantee you that most of the time it works around something where they're not self-sufficient, right? So if they need money from you, if they need, help from you in some way, if they, they're not able to do things sort of on their own. They're not self-sufficient. We all know what that means. I don't have to explain that to you, right? But if you look through those attributes, chances are those people that stress you out, it's because they constantly need something, right? So now what I want you to do is think about, you've heard this question before, but think about if you could invite 3 of your absolute favorite people to dinner, who would those people be? Right? Write that down, and you could probably write their names on this one. I don't think anybody would mind being actually invited to dinner. Okay, so take a second and think about who those 3 people you'd like to be, around because of their energy or because of, whatever that is that comes to mind. Automatically write that down. Okay, and then write down the attributes as to why you'd want to see them. Right? That could be anything, conversation is good. They inspire you, they motivate you, they challenge you in the right ways, they make you feel empowered, whatever that is. I mean, we all have things that we are attracted to in people, right? So write those down too. Okay. And once you're done that, do the same thing. See if there's sort of a common thread or a theme as to, the attributes of these people that you do want to spend your time with. And when you're looking at that, on this side of things, I guarantee you that these people are self-sufficient, right? It's not that they want something from you. They're offering something to you, right? So think about that in terms of, the themes that are coming up in those attributes of people that you want to be around. And then the last question that I want you to answer is, if somebody else were making these lists, right? Which side would you fall on? Would you fall on the side where, you're stressing people out because you're, in a state of constant chaos, everything's always, and you need something, and, or are you somebody that people want to be at a dinner party with because of your energy and how, calming you are to them, right? So when we're thinking, this all actually sort of comes around full circle, because when we're thinking of the time that we have in our lives, right? And that time that we want to be able to dedicate to ourselves, to make ourselves feel more balanced, more empowered, more aligned with those things that we want. When we don't take that time to actually do it, you kind of feel like you're one of those people that stresses everybody out, right? And yet we don't want to take the time to sit and center ourselves, to take care of ourselves both inside and out, because we know by this point, but by taking care of the inside, you automatically allow yourself permission to take care of the outside, right? So many people are like, I don't have time to work out, I don't have time to do my food, I don't have time to do any of those things. You don't have time because your mind is in this, sort of constant chaos, right? And if you don't take that opportunity, whether that's to meditate or journal first thing in the morning or center yourself on a greater level than just thinking, oh yeah, I can do that, or oh yeah, I'm centered, but actually going through and experiencing that, you're living in that your flow is chaotic. It's not an aligned flow where you feel good and therefore you're putting that positive, awesome, radiant, just you to the core energy out there, and then in return receiving that, loving energy that you want back, right? So when we're thinking about where we're going to allot our time, it really serves you to focus that stuff on the inside, whether that is doing your meditations first thing in the morning or whatever works for you, even doing the breathing exercises to allow that energy, that positive flowing energy to come into your body so that you are able to express that and in return get that back, right? It's so incredibly important if you want to be that person who gets invited to dinner in the, big metaphorical sense. Okay, so that's what I wanted to start this off with today, so that you understand how crucial it is to take the time for yourself and not just fluff it off and say, you know, either you're not worth it or you're too busy or you're anything. Because even if, you know, you're a mom or you're an employee or you have, you know, so you have kids or you have a boss who's demanding stuff from you, you're not giving your best stuff unless you begin that positive flow. Okay, so that's the point of all of it. Everybody benefits when you really take care of yourself. Okay, so all of that said, I'm going to jump right into the nutritional habit that we're working on this week. And this is a bit of a weirdo, controversial one, right? It's carbs and making healthy carb choices, because everybody knows, you know, if you want to drop weight, you've got to cut the carbs, which for the most part is true, but generally people work best with a little bit of carb intake. So the real key to this is actually learning how to make healthy carb choices, right? And having had gone through this, we know that depending on your body type, the timing of your carbs is always a little bit different. If you're naturally thicker, you want to keep them to post-workout only. If you're naturally more muscular and athletic, you can have them sort of in moderation, but ideally you're still keeping them for post-workout. And if you're naturally thinner and skinny-limbed and that sort of stuff, that's when you want to incorporate them more often throughout the day, because you're able to metabolize that sugar a little bit easier than any other body type, right? But what does it mean to actually make smart carb choices? So this doesn't just mean, okay, well, you know, I'm an endomorph, so I'm only going to eat it after my workout, so then I'm going to have a bowl of pasta. No, that still doesn't really make that much sense, right? We want to make smart carb choices so that we can use our carbs to fuel ourselves and make ourselves feel great, as opposed to contributing to any of the nasty side effects of too much sugar in our system. So how do we do that? So these are the slower digesting carbs, okay? Lots of fiber within these carbs, then certainly very nutrient rich. So nothing that's, you know, overly processed or processed at all, really, or anything white for sure is not going to be, you know, included within this diet. So you're thinking whole grains, rice, quinoa, buckwheat, that sort of thing, and beans and legumes. And I'm going to be 100% honest when I say to you that although grains of any sort are, you know, included, whole grains are included in this list, I have always had the most success, not only for myself, but with my clients as well, when you don't have grains. It's just that simple. I think for a lot of people, there's difficulties digesting them. Not everyone, right? This is not, I'm not whitewashing everything, but it just seems to be the truth. So if you're one of these people who, you know, has a real addiction to the rices and the oats and all of that kind of thing, if it's working for you, great. But if it's not, and you're not getting the results that you would like to get, you need to really consider either cutting them out or looking at a more advanced nutritional protocol while you're just, where you are carb cycling, so you're doing that in a really effective way when your body's at its peak state to be able to digest that properly for you, okay? So if you have any questions about that, let me know in the comments below, and I'll direct you to where I talk about carb cycling, okay? So fruits and starchy vegetables are also on this list, right? Fruit is a carb, it's sugar, and it's certainly one of those things, while very, very healthy because of, you know, it is nutrient dense, fructose, the sugar in fruit, does have to be stored first. You can't use it immediately as energy. It's got to get stored and then reconverted into glucose before it can actually get burned, you know. So that means that, you know, regardless, whatever fruit you ingest, that sugar is going to get first stored, typically as fat, and then converted to glucose for your consumption. So that's a good thing to keep in mind if you're one of these people who has, you know, bananas every morning and berries and oranges, and then, you know, you have grapefruit for lunch, and then, you know what I'm talking about, right? So be aware that fruit is, while very healthy for you, so you don't need to, you know, consider cutting it entirely, it is certainly one of those things to be aware of. And then the starchy vegetables, if you don't know what those are things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, plantains, peas, any of those ones that, you know, we have a tendency to like more. Those are generally the starchy variety, and to be kept to post-workout, and in smaller quantities than, you know, your green vegetables, broccoli, salads, stuff like that. Okay, so it's not, I understand that for a lot of people, this is a very difficult habit to start to ingrain, right? So many people, we've all been brought up on breads and cereals and pastas and rices, and it's cheaper and it's all of those things, right? And it's the first habit where we're actually, kind of taking something away as opposed to adding, right? Our last two habits were fairly easy in that sense because we're adding protein, we're adding vegetables. It's very easy to add things to what you're already doing. And this is the first one where we're actually considering taking things out of our typical diet, right? Because we're making a healthy choice versus just a choice, right? So this one is a little bit more difficult, but it's one of those things where for the longest time, we hear that you go low carb, and a lot of us have this idea that we cannot have any carbs. But the truth is that going low carb too much, especially for women, kind of starts to wreak a bit of havoc on your hormones after a while, and you'll start to notice other things go. So your moods go, your sleep goes, your anxiety might come up because you're not able to balance your hormones in the same way as you would if you had some carb coming into your system. So it's not the complete enemy. It's just that we need to be very smart about which ones we're choosing and when we eat them, when weight loss, fat loss ultimately is the goal, okay? So it doesn't, for the next 2 weeks while we're working on this habit necessarily matter. Like, I'm not going to give you this list and say you have to only, eat fruit or do whatever. Make your decisions based on what's going to work for you and your families or your work situation or whatever that is for you. But you have to plan ahead so that you're not just, grabbing granola bars or something like that on a whim because you want to have oats in your day and in your meals for the day, right? Think ahead about what those healthy carb choices are going to be. Make a decision before the 2 weeks comes up whether or not you're going to have grains for this next 2 weeks. Or maybe you want to use this as a bit of a grains detox period to see, after 2 weeks when you then re-enter them into your diet, if they do bloat you, if they do cause you any kind of digestive disruption, it's a good way and a good indicator and a good means of doing that, right? And it's one of those things too, like it's people will generally think, well, everything else takes too much time. If I could just cook off pasta real quick, or I could do this real quick. The truth is that you can cook off some fish just as quick. You can do things, and it's just an excuse. So it's a really good idea to nip this in the bud right now and understand that all of the resistance and stuff that comes up around your carbs and doing what you have always done is just that, and just let it go, right? Because there's always going to be, when we add something in or change something, there's always going to be that resistance, but we just have to be able to recognize it and let it go, because you're here for a reason, and it's not to resist everything that is good for you, right? Okay, so anything else that I wanted to mention on here? Just if you have forgotten or haven't seen it for a little while, our portion sizes when it comes to carbs are your cupped handful. So that is not a lot, okay? That might be like half of a small sweet potato, a cup of berries, like things like that. We're not going for tons of carbs. We don't need tons of carbs. Remember, they're not the only thing that can fuel you. Anything that you put into your system, your body is quite capable of converting into glucose to give you energy. So you do not need to grab a bagel for energy whatsoever. And let's see, anything else that I wanted to mention about this? Okay. Not too much. Except, so let's look at pregnancy, right? If you are currently pregnant, which several of you are, you have to understand that it's a little bit different within this too, and that your hormones are going to be a huge deal during this. So for you, keeping that handful is generally a good idea. You don't have to necessarily, you're not trying to lose weight at this point. You're trying to fuel both you and baby. So your big keys throughout this are to get fiber through your carbs. So certainly whole grains, and your fruit, and tons of vegetables. And depending on where you're at in your pregnancy, this can be easier or hard, right? So if your nausea or something is keeping you or preventing you from eating vegetables, try and think outside the box in this. So making smoothies, making sauces, just like you would for a kid or the baby that's about to come out of you at a certain point. How would you try and feed them so that you maybe mask some flavors and something that might be causing you to feel a little bit nauseous, okay? So you're going to want to get tons of these beautiful carb options in whenever possible, and certainly stay away from anything white, because of all things during pregnancy, gestational diabetes is a big deal. So if we're putting in too much white stuff into our system, we become more and more at risk of that, okay? Especially if we're older. So, which let's be honest, most moms are these days. So that's just something to take into consideration. Other than that, I think that's about it for the Smart Carbs. If you have any questions about making carb choices or need some ideas about how to include more healthy carbs in your life, then let me know. If you want to know about carb cycling or more advanced nutritional protocols, certainly let me know about that too. Other than that, I wish you a great Sunday or Monday if you're on the opposite side of the world. Again, a happy Canada Day if you're in Canada, or an Independence Day. Is that what it's called in the States? And for you this week, what I certainly wish is that you are able to find that time and make that time for yourself, so that all of you are people who are on the invited list for dinner. All right. So thank you so much. Remember to keep sweating, and you've got this.